Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
13 games down, 3 to go, and the Saints sit atop the NFC, not the South, but the entire NFC, in complete control of their own destiny. Welcome to Game Plan with Juan Kincaid. I'm Sean Fazant. Nice suit.
Thank you. After a short week and a half in the NFC's top slot, the Saints are back to sitting in the driver's seat for a home field advantage throughout the playoffs. Now the biggest challenge, playing with the lead.
Yeah, I mean, we'll always, the start of each week, talk about where we're at, and obviously we're playing for a lot right now, and you know, I think when teams start out the new season, they talk about winning their division. I think that's the starting point, and then from there, you know, you begin to segment. You know, for us, it's still week to week. I'll point a number of things out to the team this week like I did last, and we'll move forward.
Speaking of where they're at in terms of wide receiver help, we could find out as soon as tomorrow about the availability of Ted Ginn Jr. His 8 weeks on IR officially ends this week, and there remains a need of more impact target pass catchers for Drew Brees, especially now that they've cut Brandon Marshall. Marshall was signed exactly 1 month ago today as an immediate replacement for recently signed and injured Des Bryant. But Marshall never dressed for game day, which may say more about what the 34-year-old still has left to offer. Meanwhile, the schedule makers usually get it right by giving us divisional games that matter in the final few weeks of the season.
And on Monday will be the first of 2 games in their final 3 weeks against Carolina, a team that's reeling and in desperate need of a win. When it comes to the 6 and 7 Carolina Panthers, it all starts with number 1. Cam Newton, who was having a great season until recently, where he's thrown 6 interceptions in his last 3 games.
And first down for Cam Newton, and it's intercepted.
Still, the Saints know Newton well, and more importantly, know that he's capable of beating defenses with both his arm and his feet. And when the ball isn't in Newton's hands, it's usually in Christian McCaffrey's. He leads the team in rushing yards, receptions, receiving yards, and touchdowns. Defensively, linebacker Luke Kuechly is still regarded as one of the game's best. He's 4th in the league with 111 tackles. Mario Addison leads the team in sacks with 8, and rookie cornerback Dante Jackson from LSU leads the team with 4 interceptions. At 11-2, the Saints have already clinched the NFC South. But while that goal has been accomplished, the journey is far from finished. And each week, the test gets bigger and bigger.
It's a methodical process, understanding and being able to ride the highs and the lows. And so we are very, very grateful, very, happy. That was a milestone for us. It definitely was a goal. But we also understand that there's more to do. We've got 3 more games left. Now we punched our tickets to the playoffs, and so we're looking forward to the next step.
Panthers head coach Ron Rivera's 5-game slide has his future with the club very much up in the air. Not only does his team need to win to make the playoffs, he may need to win just to keep his job, Juan.
He's been one of the most stable coaches in the NFC South. It's a surprise right now, but they haven't played well. And here's the thing about Carolina, the Panthers. It wasn't that long ago that they were right on the Saints' heels in the race for the NFC South title, Sean. Just 5 weeks ago, the Saints were 7-1. The Panthers were 6-2 and coming, not ready to back down until they did back down. The last 5 weeks have been a nightmare for Carolina, so much so that the future of head coach Ron Rivera, as you mentioned, is in serious doubt. But the Panther players play the game. And during their 5-game skid, the players have struggled each week.
It's extremely frustrating, coming up short each and every week with similar settings and not, kind of pushing through. And I wish I had the words to say, but I don't. In this league, that's what it always comes down to. Finding ways to keep the game close or just to win late in the game, and we just haven't found that way to win in those situations. We're in a position where we're done with the cliche sayings. We're done with the, what we're supposed to do. It just comes down to us doing our job, and that's pretty much what it is, in all 3 phases of football. So, even though coach can get up and motivate us, we can motivate and scream and holler and scream. It just comes down to us doing our job. And like I say, I'm not talking to nobody but myself.
Cam's frustration clear to see, especially since, as he explained later on, they've been moving the ball very well between the 20s, but the scoring They struggle to score when they get into the red zone, and that's a big, big problem.
Got to put the ball in the end zone, which makes you wonder how they'll approach Monday night's game. Maybe the more desperate team?
Oh, without a doubt. Despite losing 5 straight games, they still have playoff hopes and dreams of a wild card berth. Luke Kuechly said, win or lose, they'll play hard. He said that's never going to be an issue with this Panther team, and you kind of figure that's the mentality. They'll always give the Saints a tough game, no matter where they are in the standings.
Yeah, those NFC South battles are never easy.
Always
Up
tough.
next, round 4 of Marshawn Lattimore versus Mike Evans definitely went in favor of the Saints' corner. My film study will break down just how decisive that victory was.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Many Saints took time to give back to the community this week thanks to a generous donation from Benjamin Watson and Gail Benson. 25 families will have a Christmas this year. Ben Watson has been doing this benefit for 10 years now, but he says it never gets old. It's all about showing people, even strangers, that they're loved and remembering the true meaning of Christmas. Each family received $325 from Watson and another $100 from Gail Benson. All involved said that the night was a rewarding experience.
I'm grateful. I can't express how I feel right now. I don't think I have any words.
Getting the boys a big gift this year, and now we can get a bunch of groceries for the house and that.
It brought tears to both of our eyes. I mean, they were so excited and so genuinely just elated to be able to do something like this.
Just want to tell people that we care about them. Even though we don't know them, we care about them, especially during Christmas time.
The whole thing was a surprise at the Walmart in Harahan. Those who showed up didn't find out until later they'd receive a shopping spree or that so many Saints players would be in attendance. Against Tampa Bay in Week 1, the Bucs shot through the Saints secondary with explosive play after explosive play.
But this time, it was much different, especially when it came to Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore. Lattimore clearly won this matchup, as I discovered in my film study. On the game's first drive, Mike Evans beat Marshawn Lattimore on a straight go route for 36 yards. It would be the only time Evans beat Lattimore for the rest of the game. Lattimore was matched up with Evans for most of the game and played him well. Here he is on the stack formation. Lattimore effectively stays under Evans as he runs the skinny post. Later, Evans attempted to run the same 9 route he beat Lattimore on in the first drive. But this time, Lattimore recognizes it and stays on top of the route. Evans is a big receiver, but Lattimore was not afraid to get physical with him. Here, the two tangle up on a slant out route. Evans wanted a flag, but did not get it. And finally, Lattimore always trusts his technique. Here he is against Evans, but on the snap, Lattimore flips to his inside technique position. This takes away the desired in route that Evans wants to run. In the first matchup, Lattimore did not play well against Mike Evans and the Bucs, but they've steadily improved all year long, and they're a big reason why the Saints defense has carried this team over the last 2 weeks.
His play recently is like his play early on. He didn't play well in the first part of the season, but he's steadily come on, just like this defense has, and has helped them. Meanwhile, you got to have a good coach to get it together, right? And every other team wants a coach like Dennis Allen on their staff, leading their defense and hopefully getting the kind of production out of their unit, like he has with the Saints. It wasn't that long ago that the Saints defense was leaking everywhere, but under Allen's guidance, that's changed. And the D is now a major reason why the Saints have already clinched a playoff spot and are chasing the NFC's top seed. First against the rush, which helps the pass defense, which has gotten better. And they're creating turnovers more often than not. Allen's left the Saints for a head coaching job before, and he will probably have an opportunity to do so again. Deuce McAllister believes the next time could be different.
He is putting himself in position to be picky as far as to say, nah, I'm not going to take that job. When you get your first one and it doesn't work out, it kind of humbles you in a sense, but it also makes you think, hey, look, you know, next time I get this is what I'm looking for. They have to have some players in there. I don't want to have to maybe try to build it. And so for him, he knows he has a good situation in New Orleans. The question will be, do I want to continue to build here and be a little picky with that situation? But the adjustments they've made over the last couple of weeks have been outstanding.
No one would ever blame Allen for jumping in head first on his first head coaching opportunity, even though the deck was stacked against him from the start in Oakland. Now he's grown up a bit, and he won't be so quick to jump in this time.
Yeah, you know what? He's one of the unsung heroes of this team
Yes,
right now, so he definitely deserves another opportunity. We'll see if it happens. Still to come, Drew Brees has thrown 3 picks in 3 games. is this a cause for concern? We'll discuss in our State of the Saints roundtable.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Always nice to have with us Luke Johnson from NOLA.com, the Times-Picayune. Of course, he covers the Saints for them every week. The big news breaking today, obviously, is about Brandon Marshall being released from the team, cut however you want to say it. He's not with the team anymore. Is that an indication of him not being better than what we have in-house already?
Yeah, I think so. There's no need to make a change right now when you've got Keith Kirkwood playing pretty well. You've got Austin Carr playing pretty well. Dan Arnold, before being inactive, was contributing nicely. I don't know where you put him. And then you have to probably cut somebody else off the team or try to hope to sneak somebody onto the practice squad. I just think you let the guy get an opportunity elsewhere and just go with your guys.
Wasn't meant to be, and clearly I just think from an age standpoint where he's at in his career, not the player he once was, and clearly he wasn't showing enough in practice because the Saints have had some trouble outside of Michael Thomas with their pass catches over the last couple of weeks as far as getting separation. So if he wasn't able to get up last week, it probably wasn't going to happen. No surprise at all there that he was going to eventually be let go. But man, I got to tell you, that was the biggest question amongst Saints fans was when he's going to get on the field. It ain't going to happen.
And it's interesting because we think this guy's a quality receiver, but that's an area, they're almost desperate to find someone to help out Michael Thomas.
Name the number two.
Teams are going to start bracketing him if they're not doing it already.
Name the number two receiver right now. I mean, it's hard to really define one. And I think, as we said earlier in the week, I think Traquan Smith's kind of hit that rookie wall a little bit. He hasn't had the same production he's had in the first half of the season. Austin Carr's hit or miss. I like Dan Arnold, but he was down last week. So Keith Kirkwood, I think, has potential, but still figuring it out. So, yeah, I think that's a legitimate question going forward.
And don't forget, I think we'll see tomorrow if Ted Ginn practices. If he practices, they might bring him up for Week 17 and have somebody for the playoff run. It'd be nice to have somebody with experience because Traquan, we've seen him do some great things, but like you said, it's just he's kind of hit the wall. He hasn't done much in the last couple of weeks.
Of course, the Saints in the driver's seat right now for the NFC title and hosting all the playoffs compared to 2 weeks ago when they were in that same driver's seat. How's the view different now, Sean, for the Saints?
Less games, so you're almost at the finish line here. The lights at the end of the tunnel, you kind of see it. The schedule to finish things out doesn't necessarily look as daunting as it once did, but I mean, look, it's two NFC South matchups against the same team and Pittsburgh in the middle who's battling for their own division, so it's not going to be easy. So I think, but I do like the Saints' chances to finish this thing out strong.
Yeah, just like Sean said, I think if you are looking at 6 weeks to go with you being in control of your own destiny and 3 weeks to go, I think that's a big difference. You can see, okay, here's the path that we need to get there, and you can also see who the Rams are playing and say we probably can't lose.
Exactly.
Rams are playing the 49ers, Cardinals, and the Eagles in their last 3 games.
Yeah, 2 to 3 at home,
wins.
too.
Yeah. So you got to win out, and you got 3 games left to do it.
And, of course, as Sean just mentioned, the Panthers twice in 3 weeks. They're first and back here in the season. Got a Panthers football team that's lost 5 games in a row. Is this the perfect time to be playing them when they've got a struggling team record-wise and a quarterback who may or may not be injured, but he's not playing his best football?
These always kind of weird me out because it feels like that light can switch at any second. And these games they're losing, they're not losing by a lot. It's they had the loss to Detroit where they decided to go for 2 rather than kick the game-tying extra point. It's just it's been kind of a weird stretch for this team. But you look at Cam Newton was playing at a very high level the first half of the season. Last 5 games, all losses, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He's dealing with that shoulder injury that's just kind of throwing him off. And I think that plays in the Saints' favor. I think this is a good time to be playing the Panthers.
Yeah, there's no time left for Carolina. It has to be this week or never. They got to win out to even have a chance to get into the playoffs. So, yeah, I don't know if they're catching them at the right time. I do know if the Saints were to beat them this week, it's probably over for Carolina, and it could be over for Ron Rivera. I went through some tape earlier from the Browns and Panthers game. North Turner's done an excellent job with their play designs, their offensive scheme. They've really done well, but it's not all coming together. I don't know if it's a mojo thing, but all of a sudden they slipped up and just can't find their footing.
I'll tell you what it is. It's bad situational football.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. They're number 1 in the NFL in rushing yards per play, number 8 or 9 in passing yards per play, and they're bad on third downs. They're bad in the red zone. They're bad in all those other places.
The most important places where you can't afford to be bad at. But meanwhile, speaking of being bad, Drew Brees hasn't been great the last couple of weeks. He has 3 picks in the last 3 games. After that, before that, 1 pick in the first 10 games. Is he pressing a little bit with this football team? Maybe trying to do a little bit too much. Is that an effect from having a receiving core that's not completely there for him?
I have this theory. I think once Teron Armstead comes back, the offensive line will restabilize a little bit. I think him being out these last 2 weeks, I thought it really showed up with Jermon Bushrod. Once the offensive line is back, that's stabilized, and everything sort of unlocks from there. He has an extra half second to a second to allow those receivers to get some separation. You know, those 4 undrafted guys caught passes against Atlanta, then all of a sudden against Dallas and last week's game, they weren't able to do so. So I think it's more about getting this offensive line intact because they were so good for so long. Now they got to get rolling, and hopefully the chemistry will come back. But look, he didn't play well in that first half. That was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen him make on that interception. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
I think you hit the nail on the head. You look at especially the interceptions he threw against Tampa and Dallas. Both of them he had pressure, and both of them were within 2 or 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. I think you get Teron Armstead back. That line was playing at such an elite level with that guy being the kind of anchor of it. You get him back, and I think Drew gets back to being where he was earlier this year.
Finish up with this. What's the biggest threat to a Saint to win on Sunday, Sean?
They got to play. I mean, look, it's the same formula, right? If Drew's dealing with a pass rush, that's a problem. If they turn the ball over, that's a problem. Bad situation football, that's a problem. So, look, I just think they got to play clean, good football. I think they'll get the win on Monday night.
Run CMC. I think you got to stop that guy. Yeah. I think he is. Christian McCaffrey is who their offense goes through. You talked about North Turner earlier. That guy is like the running back whisperer, and he's doing great things with McCaffrey. He has an outside shot at being the first guy since Marshall Faulk in 1999 to have 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season. So you stop that guy, I think you stop the Carolina Panthers.
All right, we'll leave it there with Luke Johnson from NOLA.com. The Times picked you. And Luke, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, coming up, Mike Thomas is the best receiver in the NFL, and Chris Hagan has the numbers to back up that claim. Don't miss the definitive breakdown of his dominance.
You're watching Game Plan, sponsored by your Southern Quality Ford dealers, home of the best-selling truck 41 years straight.
Time now for the keys to the game, and the one focus on Carolina. In their 7 losses this season, the defense was terrible at building off the offense's momentum. The 21 times that Cam Newton and company scored a touchdown or a field goal, the defense has responded by allowing the opposing team to strike right back 17 times. Tough to build a lead, much less momentum when you take 1 step back for every step forward. If there ever was a Twitter handle that was so appropriate as Michael Thomas's that reads,
Can't guard Mike.
No one can.
Indeed, he's doing things no one in the NFL has done ever. Chris Hagan breaks down a record-breaking start to what should be a very prosperous career.
We're very used to the Saints setting records. Even during some of their lesser 7-9 seasons, they were still running through the history books, especially Drew Brees. But now breaking records at a record pace is Michael Thomas, whose work ethic shows itself every week in the form of some big catches, especially against the Buccaneers. In 2 games against Tampa Bay this year, he caught 17 of 20 targets for 278 yards and a touchdown.
Sometimes it has to do coverage related, with what they're doing. I just watching the tape a second time here. He made some plays for us on 3rd down. There's some things he's got to do better and clean up. But a lot of it has to do probably with the structure of what certain teams do defensively.
Thomas currently ranks 2nd in the NFL with 102 receptions, and his 298 catches and counting are the most ever by any player during their first 3 seasons. But those numbers only scratch the surface of how good he is and why he's the best receiver in the league. Yep, I said it. We came into the year debating if he was top 5, but the numbers don't lie. The top 5 in receptions are Adam Thielen, Michael Thomas, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, and Juju Smith-Schuster. But when it comes to the percentage of targets he hauls in, it's not even close. Smith-Schuster sits at 69%, Adams at 67%, Jones at 65%, and Thielen catching a remarkable 73% of passes thrown his way. But Thomas outclasses them all, with 102 receptions on 118 targets. That's 86%. Then you look at the yards, where it's a similar cast of characters in the top 5. In order, Jones, Tyreek Hill, Thielen, Smith-Schuster, and Thomas. But the Saints far and away throw the ball less than any of those other teams. The Steelers, Vikings, Falcons, Packers, and Chiefs all sit in the top 6 in attempted passes. Drew Brees and the Saints are 15th, having thrown 100 less passes than the Steelers or Vikings. And still, Michael Thomas keeps pace. That's a testament to a few things. 1, the trust he's earned with Brees to make the tough catches. And 2, his ability to run so many different routes so well. The salary cap's going up next year. And if there's one team that's going to need it, it's the Saints, because there's no doubt Thomas is going to demand a big sum as he hits the prime of his career. Reporting for GamePlan, I'm Chris Hagan.
Our coverage certainly doesn't stop here. Lots more football on Fox 8 this week. Week 15 of the NFL season tomorrow night. Chargers and Chiefs in a game that will go a long way towards deciding the AFC West and maybe even the AFC champion. Sunday morning, the red-hot Cowboys take their 5-game win streak into Indianapolis. We'll be previewing the Panthers' Sunday night game on the final play. And then Monday at 6 p.m., we've got an hour-long primetime tailgate live from the Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina, getting you ready for kickoff.
Of course, you can always get in touch with us using the Final Word feature.
Where?
The final
What?
play.
You already knew.
That'll do it for us. Thank you for watching Game Plan. Thanks to everyone here at Fox 8 for their contributions. Our next newscast is at 4:30 in the morning. Good night, everyone.
Ready, Kenny? We bid you adieu.
From Fox 8 Sports, this